Hi, we're back. Part 2. So this week we thought we'd do 3 parts of a theme, and the first part we talked about how we think and how that impacts the systems we create. And so today we're talking a bit more about systems, and the 3 things we're looking at. One is the primacy of the shareholder, so that we maximize value to the shareholder, just one stakeholder. That can be problematic. The second thing is growth, and more growth, and companies just have to grow.
Never-ending growth.
Forever. And the third thing is there seems to be in corporate everywhere, there's no do no harm. Like if you're a doctor, Hippocratic oath, do no harm, but in corporate land, there's none of that. So we're going to dive into the first of those 3. You want to talk a bit about corporate?
Yeah, so as we look at system change and specifically what do we need, the first one is really that traditionally, and the vast majority of companies around the world today, operate really under the main directive, which is you have to maximize shareholder value, right? So the biggest possible profit to your shareholders. Now, if that's what's being rewarded, then you can imagine all of the systems that come into that are all funneling through so you get that best output. So everything from, you're going to negotiate down as much as you can on everything from your suppliers' pricing to your staff, compensation to, every single angle you're squeezing down, and you're rewarded for that, which kind of by definition is where you're going to end up screwing a lot of people, the planet, all of those other pieces. So as we think about the way businesses are structured, if that's the end game, is to have the biggest return the biggest shareholder value to only your investors, that's what you're going to end up with. So an alternative to that is B Corporation.
So B Corporation is a certification for a whole company, not a product, but a whole company. And it looks at how is the board structured? Is it diverse in terms of gender and other things? It looks at company culture, benefits for your staff. It looks at, do you give back to your local community? How do you make your products? Are they sustainable? SDGs come into it. And so it's a certification for the whole company. And when you pass, you then have to change the articles of incorporation so that you are now acting in the best interest of all stakeholders, not just the shareholder, which then gives you the flexibility. If you get to a point where you might be acquired by a company, in the old way, let's say there's 2 companies trying to acquire you. In the old way, you'd have to by law take the biggest number, the highest price, because you're maximizing shareholder value.
And the Ben and Jerry's story is kind of the most famous one of that era.
Now, if you're a B Corp, you can take the lower price, because the lower price might come with other benefits that's going to
maximize stakeholder value.
So they might commit to local manufacturing, they might commit to keeping your B Corp certification, they might keep all of those benefits.
More environmental practices.
Yeah.
So there's 3, when we say the difference between shareholder value versus stakeholder includes people, planet, profit. So it's a triple bottom line. Which just is so much more expansive and makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
So obviously we're huge proponents of B Corp. Even if, certainly if you work in a large corporation, you may not be able to get them to change over. It's quite a big deal to change your articles of incorporation. But even, just going through the process, looking at the forms, it's something that is so valuable because you start to see all the holes that your traditional businesses have and blind spots. So even if you can't convince maybe your department or your company to go across completely, there might be scope to at least investigate it as a way to improve your kind of social and environmental responsibility.
Yeah, we've definitely found working with startups and also established companies, they just go through the process and it's at no cost to go through the certification, and it just triggers thoughts about, I hadn't thought about what are we doing about, what's our energy?
Do we pay our women equally?
Yeah, and so small things like that. But it's a really valuable thing. So check out bcorporation.net and you can download the assessment.
And we'll hit the other 2
tomorrow. Next time. Okay, see you then.